everyone. We're going to be starting in just one moment here. Please bear with me one more second.
Afraid we bring all their minds, running wild stories yet untold. Blinded by the fences they can comprehend, thinking their wolves, their illusions won't end. Oh, can't you see, oh sheep so lost, dancing with wolves at a high cost. Break down the fences, regain your sight, embrace who you are in the pale moonlight. The cage is a cage, being free, stop cold. Game in a rage, keep ripping the bone, or zombie the beast. Keep on running man, shape of the wolves, with ideas to rend.
All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Voss, and I'm speaking to you from the studios here in the Bronx, New York. We're having a great day. It's January 4th. It's about 6 p.m. I thank you for taking a moment to be here with us. If it's the first time that you are joining us, I thank you. I welcome you for being part of the audience. And I want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, especially every Sunday. Every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out across all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to hear your voice, to hear what you have to say about all the issues that matter, because we believe in the freedom of speech. We believe in your God-given birthright to be able to speak about your government and the issues that affect you all. So we hope you will join us from any country in the world every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to seeing you with us this Sunday as well. Hey, hi Dal, how you doing there? Let me make sure. There we go. We got the chat stream up. Thursday, yes, it's a Thursday live stream. Well, it's Politik Nama, which is German for politics, and it's Japanese for raw. So it's raw politics, American style. I didn't do a live stream at noon with Larry Sharp this week, so I decided I'd come on and talk a little bit about what's going to be coming up very, very shortly. In fact, this weekend, which is the fortification of the 2024 election. It's starting early. They're not wasting any time. They're going to be starting on January 6th. We already know what the game plan is going to be. It has been leaked, and we can tell you about that, and we can tell you about the things they aren't going to be talking about. And I think that's just as important as what they do target. And I was going to do a video on it, but I figured, it's the beginning of the year. Let me talk with the audience. There are too few people who want to, in the mainstream news media, that actually want to have an engaging conversation about election, about the fortification, the nullification in these elections, the issues that aren't being talked about. I want to do the unapproved message. So, Dal, I thank you for taking some time to be here with us, and I hope other people will check it out as well. I apologize to the people on Rumble. For some reason, there's a beta stable link, and it isn't working at this moment. And I apologize to all of our fans on Rumble, but we will post it after the live stream there. You'll also see in the description links to everything we're going to be talking about, so you can read through the stories for yourself, as well as go back in our catalog and see what we've been talking about for the last couple of years about fortification of the 2024 election. So let me start off first of all. When I say fortification of the 2024 election, what am I talking about? It's a term that very few are willing to use, and I think it's very important. When I say the fortification, I mean what they did in 2020, which we have seen from Newsweek, and many in the media have now admitted it was a combination of mainstream news media, a bunch of social media giant companies, and some private individuals working together to push a political message to you, to change the way you're going to vote in an election, both in terms of what they did talk about and also what they wouldn't talk about. one of the big things that obviously comes to mind is they didn't want to talk about Hunter Biden. They didn't want to talk about his laptop, his money, the influence peddling that he's been alleged to have been doing, and he's under criminal charge, as well as his gun charges. They didn't want to touch any of that. And we have seen in polls since the 2020 election, had that been involved or known to the mainstream public in detail, and it wasn't just said, oh, well, that's Russia collusion, it's fake news, it's not real. 2 years later, we found from every credible news media in the world, yes, it was real. It has always been real. It has always been true. So if that had been known in the 2020 election, we may have had a different result. Maybe. So that's one aspect of voter nullification, where we see these companies, they're aligning, these individuals and these organizations aligning to direct you towards one outcome alone, to vote for their person. Now, I'm not saying that just Democrats do that, as Republicans may do it as well, but Democrats are better, and the progressives are better than even them, and pushing that message along down the road. And you would think that they're the majority of America with the voice that they're able to project. But they're not. They're a splinter of America. But that's what fortification does. It makes it seem like your position, your ideology is unassailable, that no one can question it, that no one can challenge it or defeat it because no other voice can be heard. It's only the approved messages that get through. That's why we've seen the Biden-Harris administration try and put together the Disinformation Governance Board to silence anyone who didn't have an approved message. That's why YouTube right now, if you go into your YouTube feed, you will find news channels that you do not follow. Things like The View, things like CNN or MSNBC, the mainstream news media, almost entirely left-leaning, that they're injecting into your stream to try and guide you in your election, to feed that in the back of your mind. It's kind of like subliminal messaging. They're going to bombard you with this so that you're going to tend to want to vote for this person. Part of that is you're going to see some of the same names over and over again. Donald Trump will be Orange Man Bad, and he will be associated with evil and negativity. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris will be associated with good and progressive and positive throughout the rest of the year, so that when it comes time for the election, they hope that you're just going to automatically go, subliminal, Joe Biden must be good, Donald Trump must be bad, RFK Jr. doesn't exist, and that's how you're going to vote. That's what fortification does. That's what we're talking about. Messing with your mind and your emotions to get an outcome that a group of elites know. If you were thinking logically, if they weren't there trying to manipulate you, it would never exist. They would never be able to succeed, and they know it. But that's why they're doing this, to manipulate you, to get what they want, regardless of what you would actually prefer. So we're going to have a conversation about this, and we're going to go through some of these terms, some of these ideas, because you will not hear the mainstream take the time to actually speak with you, to talk about this, to show you the examples, to get through this. So that's what, when I say the fortification of 2024, the elections, that's what I mean. And I have to be somewhat careful in how I say this because the censors in YouTube will suppress the hell out of this conversation. They do not want you to be aware of what they are doing, but they won't stop doing it. That being said, hang on, I got a bunch of notes here. Give me a second. So one of the key things that we're going to be seeing going forward in the 2024 election is part of the fortification is to distract you from the issues that actually matter to you. And I think, and you may tell me I'm wrong, but I think the two things that everyone in America is looking for in this election in 2024, it's actually an election about trust and it's an election about leadership. And I think most people would agree with that. That's what we're really voting on in 2024. above and beyond any issue, regardless of what political preference that you may have, how partisan you may or may not be. What you're looking for is, I want to trust the person in the White House to do the right thing or the best thing for America, and I want to see them lead both America and the rest of the world into prosperity, into peace, into stability, to a better place than where we are right now. That's what we're looking for. That's what the election is about, and that's something that we're seeing in the fortification of 2024. That's not happening. That's not being discussed at all. The news media have horrible, bottom of the barrel trust. No one trusts the news media because we've seen them. How many times have we seen them have to announce that their reporters plagiarized their stories or just completely made them up, and they had to fire them and delete dozens of their articles because they were never real? These are the graduates of Harvard and Yale. This is what we get to expect. It's leadership from the top down. They're copying Catherine Gay in plagiarizing. Same thing that Joe Biden has done in many of his speeches. He's been called out on it many, many, many times. They plagiarize and they create their own stories. And when they get caught, they just go, well, too bad, go on, because it's the New York Times, because it's CNN, it's MSNBC or NBC. They're too big to fail. They'll just keep going until me and small other channels, alternative news media, they'll tell you, oh, well, they don't know what they're talking about, even though it's the big guys who have their people being caught lying to you on a regular basis. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we will see. And starting on Saturday, this is going to start Saturday, January 6th. You're going to see that the message is going to be very emotional, and they're going to try and manipulate you. They're going to be starting off saying, hey, don't worry, this is trust in leadership. You know what? Trump doesn't have it. RFK Jr. doesn't have it. The Libertarian Party doesn't have it. The Green Party doesn't have it. They're not going to say that Joe Biden is someone you should trust. They're not going to say that Joe Biden is the leader that is strong in the world. They're not going to say that because that would be an outright lie, and nobody believes it. Not Democrats, not Republicans, not anyone else in the world. We see that with Iran. We see that with Russia, China. We see that in every country, and we see that even within our own country in poll after poll after poll. That's why Joe Biden, the man who got the most votes ever, and we were told was beloved in America in 2020. Well, in 2024, at the beginning, Democrats don't want him to run. They don't want him to be their candidate, and they have no choice. So they're expected to just vote straight down the line, Democrat, don't speak, don't ask questions. So you're going to hear that starting on January 6th, and I will give you the proof and show you the evidence. It's in the links, the description, some of the sources that I'm getting this from, which is coming from international news media. It's coming from the White House itself. It's coming from the reporting from the left. The other thing that you're going to see in this fortification as we go forward, the other issue that's very important for America, about 72% of Americans are concerned about the economy. It is bad. We are worse off today than we were in 2020 or even 2019 because interest rates are up. You're paying more in your credit card, in your mortgage, in your, if you have college debt, anything that has interest rates, you're spending more money because the economy is that much worse. You're spending more money because taxes have gone up, because governments are wasting money. Like New York State just announced today that their $113 million investment in next-gen power systems, a green energy startup company, failed. They just took $113 million of your money, they lit a match to it and burned it and threw it away. And now they're going to come back to you. And you will hear Governor Kathy Hochul this year say, climate change is the number one issue. We have to become more and more green. Let's take more of your tax money and give it to another startup that just happens to be politically aligned with their progressive ideology, whether or not it actually works. They're going to pick the winners, and you're going to suffer when they lose because they're going to go as woke as they can, and you're going to go broke. So they don't want to talk about the economy because as much as they try to tell you Bidenomics has worked, they can't point to an example where it has. And my example of that very simply is when you go to the store, when you pay your bills, are you paying more today than you did in 2020 or 2021? Even 2022 or 23, you're paying more. And in fact, inflation this year, 2024, will go up at least 6% more. That's because the government's going to spend $35 trillion. And when they do that, that's money they're printing that didn't exist before. That's going to inflate. So besides having higher interest rates, your money is worth less and less. That's why they keep telling you, don't worry, give it more time. You just don't understand. Even though you're paying the bills, even though it's your money that's coming out of your pocket to go to fund government political partisan programs and buddies, money going to their donors, you know it's real, but they keep telling you, you just don't understand. Everything is great. It's wonderful. You just don't get it. Well, you don't get it because it's not real, and they can't point to an example where it is real. So that's kind of important. And the other thing that's going to be very important in the 2024 election, that the fortification is going to try and dissuade you, try and convince you it isn't a factor, is obviously international politics. In particular, right now, it's the Israel-Hamas war. And they're going to try and play this on you in a couple of different ways. They're going to say, well, we're in the middle of a conflict, even though we're not in the middle of a conflict. They're playing both sides of this. We're not in a conflict, but we are defending our allies and we're protecting Americans. So we're in a conflict, but we're not in the conflict. The reason why that doesn't make a whole lot of sense is because the Biden-Harris administration is trying to toe the line. They don't want to be called war hawks. They don't want to be seen as trying to get America into a war, even though we are. And while they're doing that, they're also trying to be in a war, which is what we are doing. We're fighting against the Houthis in the Red Sea, in the Indian Ocean. We're fighting against Iran-backed rebels right now. We've been fighting against them in Syria, in Iraq. Today, the Biden administration just had drones strike some more Iran-backed rebels, terrorists, because they're attacking Americans. He had to go in last week and was doing that in Syria. We're seeing that the Houthi rebels out of Yemen are attacking American ships and American allies, their commercial ships. They're attacking us on a regular basis. They're sending rockets from Lebanon through Hezbollah, through the Houthis in Yemen, and from Hamas. They're sending rockets into Israel almost on a daily basis since October 7th, and we're having to shoot them out the sky. That's why we have 2 aircraft carrier fleets in the Middle East right now. We're in a war. We're just not calling it a regional war. And in fact, this goes along with our conversation that we've talked about many times since 2022, that we are now looking at World War III. We are looking at 3 regional wars. The first one is in Europe, and we're seeing that with the Ukraine and Russia. We're also looking at probably in 2028, China invading Taiwan, threatening Japan, South Korea, and they're currently threatening our allies in the Philippines. So much so that Japan is building its first army since 1945, that South Korea is becoming the 4th largest weapons manufacturer in the world, and the Philippines are looking to try and build up a navy to try and defend themselves against China. So that's another regional war. But the one that's got everyone's attention right now is in the Middle East. It's with Israel, our only ally in the Middle East. It's between America and all of Iran and their backing, all of the terrorist organizations that they support. And that's a big deal. That makes a big difference. Now, if there are people who go through this and they say, Mike, I don't agree with something that you're saying, please Leave me a comment. You saw Dow did. You can leave a comment as well. Tell me why you think anything I'm saying is wrong. If you think that they're not going to try and fortify the election based on trust or about leadership, if you think that the two biggest issues aren't the economy or international stability, if not peace, please tell me what you think is. Do you really think that climate change is the most important issue to America right now? That's the concern. Above and beyond the 172 known and suspected terrorists that tried to enter America from the southern border and the northern border of America, do you mean to tell me you think that that's not an immediate issue, that climate change is more important than that? I mean, think about it. It only takes one terrorist to have Boulder, Colorado, to have San Bernardino, Fort Hood, Orlando. It only takes one. Now, mind you, they're going to take advantage of that too. They want that fear in you. They're going to remind you that that's going to be on Monday, because that's the second part. What you're going to see is on Saturday, Joe Biden, so January 6th, is going to tell you that you are evil. He's going to define roughly about half of America. He's going to define about 50% of America as evil. And he's going to tell you that if you do not obey, that number is growing, that you're part of that evil group. Because we need to define something else. What is MAGA? It's something that's very important because we hear it all the time. And there's a reason why you hear MAGA and not what it means. And I know many people remember what it is, but let's really think about that. Make America great again. In English, if English is your first language, you should immediately identify that is a positive statement. There is nothing negative about making our home great. You want to live in a house that is not falling apart. You want to live in a house that is as sturdy and as secure and as functional as is possible. That's true in your personal life, whether you have an apartment or a house. It's also true about your nation. There is no difference. You want it to be as strong, as functional, as beneficial as it possibly can be. That's making your country great. Whether you want to call it Build Back Better or anything else, that's making your country great. And I don't care if your country happens to be the United Kingdom or Peru, Argentina. It could be anywhere in the world. You want your country to be as great as it can be. Even if it's a third world nation like Angola or Uganda, you want it to be as great as is possible because it's where you live. So anyone who tells you MAGA is bad and you're evil for MAGA, they're not thinking. They're just quoting and being a parrot because they haven't thought about, well, what, you're saying that you want to live in a horrible place? You want an inefficient government? You want a government that doesn't benefit you? Do you really want to live there? All these college students who are like, oh, they've been indoctrinated. America's horrible. Really? Go to Uganda. Go to Venezuela. Go to these other countries and live. Don't take a vacation. Don't take someone's word for it. Go live there. See why people are fleeing those nations in droves and coming to America instead. There's a reason for that. But see, that's the fortification in effect. They're trying to convince you to not think about what they're saying, to just say it. Because you've heard it said over and over again. You've heard this from the mainstream news media. You've heard it from politicians that they love to flood the airwaves with, saying MAGA's bad, MAGA's evil, MAGA, MAGA. MAGA is a horrible person. Make America great again. Please, if there is any English teacher, any professor at any university that has found a way, looking at the definitions of those words, to find a way to make that a negative statement, I would love to hear your source. Because it's not possible. It's a positive statement. And you have been convinced emotionally, you've been manipulated to react to that as if it's a negative, as if it's supposed to be the Nazi party. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. Whether or not you're a Democrat, Republican, conservative, libertarian, Green Party, I don't care who you are, you want the greatest country you can get. There's nothing wrong with that. We may have disagreements about how to get to a great nation to make America greater and greater ever still, but none of that is a bad thing in terms of what we hope to get, a great nation. So anyone who tells you MAGA is bad, they're not trying to actually talk to you. They're trying to fortify a political outcome. They have a goal in mind. They want power. They want to manipulate an election. That's why they won't say the words, "Make America Great." They say MAGA instead, so that you don't actually think about what you're saying. You're using an acronym instead of the words, because if you say the words, at some point in the back of your head, you have to go, wait a minute, make America great. How is that bad? Why wouldn't I want my house, my home, to be great? So they don't want to say that. They say MAGA instead. This is how they fortify an election. They twist your emotions. They manipulate the way you think about something. Rather than using the word, they'll use an acronym. Instead of telling you the exact numbers, they'll give you a percentage, or they'll just be vague about the number in general if they don't avoid it altogether. Why? Because the more specific they get, the more honest they have to be. This is why we heard from AOC when she went on 60 Minutes in 2018, and she told you right up front what the plan is, how they look to fortify elections coming straight out of the colleges. The answer is, it's about it's about feelings. It's not about the truth. She said to you, and we can look this up independently, CBS 60 Minutes, you can check it for yourself. She doesn't care about being empirically correct. She doesn't care about being mathematically correct. She doesn't care about being correct in terms of the words she uses or the sentences that she makes. She cares about her feelings. Her feelings are more important than the truth. And that tells you everything you need to know about progressive politics and how they're looking to win elections. It's not about the truth. It's not about actually living up to the promises they've made to you. It's about making you feel good about the results you wind up with. They'll promise you the sky. They'll promise you rainbows and unicorns. And then when you get sludge, they'll tell you, don't you feel good about living with that? If you disagree with me, anyone disagrees at any point, whether it's live or after the show in the comments, please let me know. Tell me how I'm wrong, because we're going to show you some of the examples. So that's some of the terms we're talking about here. And I'm being honest with you, because no one else in the news media will take the time to actually go through that. The news media, MSNBC, CNN, they'll be happy, CBS, New York Times, they'll be happy to tell you how they'll use MAGA, and tell you how terrible it is. But they won't take the time to tell you, by the way, MAGA, make America great again. That's actually a statement that's positive. They don't want to do that. They know what they're doing. They have 10,000 employees. They get tens of millions, hundreds of millions, hell, billions of dollars to have people make sure they're wording it just right, because they want to manipulate you. So I've been saying all of that. Let's get into some of the other things that I wanted to cover here. And I believe, So one of the first things, in 2024, part of the fortification is they're going to change the subject. They're going to try and take you away from talking about the economy. They want to go away from telling you that you're going to be safe either overseas or in the United States. They don't want to talk about that. And so their conversation, and they're starting January 6th, and we already see this January 4th. Now, this is in the UK, and I guarantee you, you're hearing this in colleges throughout America. They're saying this in Columbia. They're saying this in Yale. They're saying this in Harvard, in Cooper Union, in Cornell University, Stanford. Across America, what are they starting to say? Oh, plants are more important than people. Wild animals are more important than people. Grass is more important than you. Grass have rights that are equal to you. You don't have to believe me. This is coming from The Guardian in the UK. And I guarantee you, if you had some honest professors at colleges across America, they'd tell you that's part of their programming too. This is part of the indoctrination. Yeah. The nature has a right. Nature has not natural rights. Nature, the grass, a tree in your backyard has the same kind of rights as you do. Now, you may say to me, Mike, that sounds stupid. And the answer is, it is stupid. But in fortifying the election, they're trying to whittle you down to make you less and less human, more and more of a category. Because if you're not a human, you don't have a choice. If you're just a bunch of categories, they can tell you what the category should do. Like, all black people should be voting Democrat. Otherwise, you're not black. That's Joe Biden who said that. That if you're black or Hispanic, you're too dumb to know how to use the internet to find out information. So don't even bother. That was also Joe Biden on CNN in the town hall 2022 when he made that statement. You don't have to believe me. Look it up. Joe Biden said that himself. So they are already telling you you're a category, and categories don't get choices. That would be agency. That would be you actually doing what the Constitution says, making up your mind, making a choice. We see this already, and it's coming. We also see this right now coming from Colorado and Maine, and we're hearing talk about that in New York, Illinois, and California. What did they do? You're not a human being. You don't get a choice. A bunch of partisan hacks, politicians, decided you don't get to, not only do you not get to have a candidate that you may want on the ballot, you can't even write that in. And it's not just about President Trump, because they decided, oh, President Trump, he can't be on the ballot. Did he break a law? No. He did not break a law. He never broke a law. They just don't like him, and they don't like what he has done. They've accused him of being an insurrectionist, but they have no proof. They don't have a trial. They don't have a judgment. They just have their accusation. And that is good enough for them, because accusation equals guilt. Because human beings get to go to court. Human beings get the right to face their accusers. Human beings in America are innocent first until proven guilty beyond a shadow of doubt. And I know you've heard Nancy Pelosi say that exactly the opposite way. Nancy Pelosi has said, oh, well, you have to prove your innocence. Don't believe me. Look it up. Nancy Pelosi, prove your innocence. She said it. Is that a mockery of America and our freedom, our Constitution, everything about American life? Yes, it is. Why did she say that then? As a highly ranking member of Congress and the Democratic Party, why would she say that? Why would she abuse the American system? Because she wants to fortify the election. Because she wants her party to have power. She wants to be one of the elites making the decisions, not you. So to maintain that, accusation equals guilt, and you don't get a choice. They made the choice for you. Whose name can show up on the ballots? And if you write in anyone, you could write in a libertarian, you could write in, I don't know, Cornel West, Larry Sharp, you can, I don't care who it is, Jill Stein, you could write in, or RFK Jr., you could write in any name you want. But they, the Democrats, the judges and the Secretary of States have to approve of your choice. If they don't like who you picked, you could pick the rent is too damn high party, and you could say, I want to vote for that guy because now rent really is too damn high. And they will say, oh, you don't have that right. You can't choose that person. Now, that's not what the Constitution says. That's not even what state constitutions say. You have a right as an American citizen, born and raised, from the moment you're born, you get the right to choose. Whether anyone else likes that choice doesn't matter. Whether or not someone thinks you are wasting your vote doesn't matter. You have a right. But fortifying the election says you don't. Fortifying the election requires that you can only pick what has already been approved and selected for you. Not just because, well, you're black or you're a woman or you're a minority, so you must vote Democrat. Notice they wouldn't impose that on white people. They wouldn't say, oh, well, you're a white Democrat, so you're white and you must vote this way. But if you're black, Hispanic, if you're a woman, well, you have to vote Democrat, if not progressive. You have to. You don't have a choice. Why? Because they've turned you into a category, not a human being. And that's fortifying the election. They're taking away your choices, they're taking away your freedom and your speech so that they can control where you wind up. And they've been doing this for years. They did in 2020, and they're about to do it again in 2024. John Turdisto says, he's, live from New York. It's Thursday night, that's for sure. So, again, if anyone disagrees with me on this, please, let's have this conversation. And I know the mainstream news media will never take the time to have this conversation with you. Whether you agree or disagree, they don't want you to think about it. It's not an approved message. That would defeat the fortification that they have been building up to limit your choices, to limit your freedom. They're building the cage around you so that you don't notice and you get used to it. But that's not just the only thing. Let me go back, because there's also, and there's a component here, and we're going to talk more about this a little bit later, but one of the other things they're going to be talking about is how to manipulate you emotionally. Like, you're going to see a lot of stories, especially Monday. Monday will be the 9th. You're going to see from Monday, January 9th, going on, you're going to hear a lot about racism. And you're going to be told that if you are MAGA, if you are anything except a Democrat, and in particular a progressive Democrat, that you're a racist. And that all of the policies that you hear from anyone who isn't a Democrat or isn't a progressive, well, that's racist too. They're going to tell you right now, look at this. It's coming out from Reuters, came out today. Oh my God, all the changes that they're making, they're racist. This is about black people. They're trying to target black people. The Republican Party, in trying to cut inflation, is being racist. Oh, did they leave out the part that by reducing the amount of money the government spends, it cuts inflation? It actually makes things more affordable for you? They don't want to talk about that. Why? Because that's about the economy. And they don't want to talk about the economy. They don't want you to be reminded that you're worse off today than you were in 2019 or 2020, even 2021, even 2022, that the prices just keep on going higher. They don't want you to think about that. So they won't mention that the Republicans are trying to control the spending of government, that government spending is the number one leading reason of inflation. Government's just printing money they don't have, and it's making the money you have in your pocket worth less and less every single day. In fact, it's part of the reason why we have seen the United States downgraded twice. There's only 3 credit rating agencies, just 3. 2 of the 3 have said America isn't trustworthy as it used to be. They downgraded us. When the 3rd one finally hits, and that will be this year. This year, you will see all 3 credit agencies say America is not AAA rated. Now, you may not know much about the finances and how the financial world looks at that, but I can tell you what it is. The difference between AAA rated and AA rated is like jumping off of the Grand Canyon. It is a huge drop in trust. People will have less trust, which means they will charge you more money. The less they believe you will pay off your debt, the more they're going to charge you for loaning you money to do business with you. You see that in your daily life. If you don't have a credit rating of 750 or above, you're going to pay more money. And the worse your credit rating is, the more money you have to pay for the exact same loan that someone with a better credit rating is going to pay less for. It works exactly the same in countries as it does for individuals. They just have bigger loans, but it's the same principle. And when all three credit rating agencies drop the United States because they don't trust us anymore, well, guess what? Everything that you buy, every piece of food, every piece of candy, every piece of electronics, that coffee that you get, that latte you get from Starbucks, that iPhone you have in your pocket, those college classes that you go to be indoctrinated, guess what? It's all going to cost you way more. And it's going to happen overnight. And we know it's going to happen because Obama politics, his economics, downgraded the United States. Last year, Biden and his Bidenomics also downgraded the United States. There's only one more left. And this year, they're going to spend as much money as possible to try and convince you with free stuff to vote Democrat. Notice they're trying to buy your college tuition. They're trying to say, hey, if you vote Democrat, we will waive all of your college debt. They're buying you. And they're buying you on the cheap. They're going to get your college tuition. They're going to waive it away. And you're going to pay for this on the back end for the rest of your life because that's adding to the inflation. Every dollar you get is going to be worth less and less and less because they paid for it with money they don't have. And that's going to make our credit rating drop down, and it's going to cost you more money. It's going to hurt you. You just won't notice it today. It's not one big lump sum, $50,000. No, it's just going to be an extra 5 cents, 3 or 5 cents on every dollar you spend for the rest of your life, for the rest of your kids' lives, and so on and so on. Nobody wants to be honest with you. Nobody wants to go through this. Instead, what the news media will do, what the major news media will do is what they're doing here. And you can see it from Reuters. It's about black people. It's about racism. It is racist. No, it's not. No, it's not. When you take care of your bills, is that about racism? If you don't go out and, I don't know, maybe you cancel your Disney Plus subscription because it's too much money for too little value because you don't want to watch their propaganda every night, is that racist? No. Well, guess what? The same thing happens when you're talking about governments. Some people will be affected more. You know why? Because they've been getting free stuff. Except that free stuff isn't free. Everything has a cost. It's whether you're paying that up front or if you're paying it on the back end, but you're paying for it. So that's part of what you're going to see. And again, on Monday, Joe Biden is going to be going over to black churches to tell you that everyone who is MAGA, everyone who believes in the Second Amendment, everyone who isn't a Democrat and progressive, they're evil. They're racist. And he's going to make sure they're against college. No, we're against indoctrination at college. Oh, it's racist. They wanted to get rid of Catherine Gay, the Harvard president, because she's a black woman. No. We're getting rid of her because she plagiarized and she also supported genocide. And that's a reason why she doesn't have her job anymore. Because she's a horrible person. I don't know her personally, but her policies, the things she's willing to stand for, they're evil. And under her, well, actually, Harvard, with or without her, still believes in genocide. Harvard, with or without her, are still more than happy to call everything racism, to indoctrinate their students rather than have them think. And when Harvard's doing it, well, Cornell University and Binghamton University and Stanford and your little local community college are all going to follow the lead of Harvard. They follow the leader because they want that government money. They want that check from the government. We spend over $100 billion on education in America, and a good chunk of that, hundreds of millions of dollars, goes to these colleges because their unions vote Democrat. So they get free money. Do you see what's happening? Do you see how they fortify elections? Do you see how this is interconnected? It's not a conspiracy. This is all factual stuff. We see this every day. We see the American budget. We know that how much the Department of Education spends. We know how much money they give to Harvard, to Yale, to all of the different colleges across America. We know that the teachers union votes Democrat. They recommend, they put out newsletters. They write letters to Congress, to tell the FBI to investigate you for daring to find out what's happening with your kids' education. Did you forget about that? That was just in 2022. That they got Garrick, the Attorney General of the United States. The teachers union were writing him letters saying he needs to investigate parents who dared to say, "What are you teaching my kids? Why are you teaching my kids the application of critical race theory? Why are you telling my kids that because of the color of their skin, they're either evil or they are a victim? I don't believe that. Why teach my kid that? Why teach my kid about sex in kindergarten like we see in Iowa, where we just saw a judge say it's perfectly okay to give a kid in kindergarten a Hustler magazine, or to have that kindergarten teacher to try and show the kids how they have gay or non-heterosexual or even heterosexual, doesn't matter, to show your kids how they have sex with their partner, regardless of what sexual preference, regardless of what sexual gender. They legally, in Iowa, can do this in kindergarten. There's no reason why a kid in kindergarten, a 5, a 6, a 7-year-old, needs to know how adults have sex. There's no reason for it. None. But this is part of fortifying the election. This is the teachers union making sure that the progressive movement knows they are supporting them, that they're supporting their agenda, so that they can have them give them money, your tax money. Nobody wants to talk to you about this. No one wants to be honest with you about this. No one wants to have this conversation because the mainstream media, they're going to be the ones who are trying to control what is approved and unapproved. They don't want you to think. They want you to do what they told you to do. You're on a path you're not supposed to get off. Stay on the plantation. Don't deviate. And that's why you're seeing this. Folks, if you disagree with me, please tell me. But I guarantee you, you will start seeing this on Monday. We know that Joe Biden on Monday will be going to a couple of black churches, and he's going to be talking about racism. And he's going to tell you that if you own a gun, you're evil. He's going to tell you that if you are MAGA, you're evil. That evil MAGA gun owners are the reason why black people die in America. That's what he's going to tell you. It's a lie. It's not even close to true. The biggest problem for Americans, black Americans, are other black Americans. The biggest reason, the biggest cause of the person who does the most homicide in America are black on black crime. That's a fact. That has been a fact for decades. And if the red flag laws, if the gun control laws, if any of them actually worked, you would see those numbers drop down. But they don't. Because they don't care if it works. They care if you reelect someone because they promised it might work. One day, it will eventually work. Thomas Sowell, a brilliant black author, a black educator, has said, the left will never admit that they are wrong. Every time something they do fails, they will tell you, well, we didn't spend enough money. We didn't spend enough time. You just have to wait. It will eventually work. It will eventually be true. Every time they will tell you that. And every time they pass a gun law and it doesn't work and it doesn't protect you, they tell you, we just need another gun law. And we just need to be more restrictive. We just need to whittle away against that Second Amendment and take away your rights. And eventually you will be safe. Except it never happens. They have been saying that about gun control for my entire life. I'm about to be 56 years old. Half a century, Democrats have said the same thing in different ways. Oh, H.R. 127. They've said it in red flag laws. It's gun control. And they've been saying the same thing. Take away the guns. That's the only thing they say. Make it harder for people to have guns legally. And they always omit 99.994% of all gun owners in America are not a problem. Legal gun owners, the overwhelming majority of Americans who own guns, not a problem. The problem in America isn't that Americans own a gun. There are other reasons why black on black crime is so prevalent, and in particular crime overall. Part of that is drugs. Part of that is that there's no police, or we've been reducing the number of police. Part of that is we have been encouraging more crime. When you do bail reform and you have a revolving door where criminals know, oh, they'll be arrested, but they'll be released in an hour, 2 hours. When 6,000 people in New York State alone, 3,000 in Michigan, I believe it was 4,000 in California, when they were rioting, destroying buildings, trying to burn down cities, and the district attorneys eliminated their charges. They just threw them out. Thousands upon thousands of people who committed a crime were let free. That's the fire department right now. It could be another one of those far leftists who want to have an autonomous zone trying to burn down the Bronx. They did it in Brooklyn, and they didn't have any penalty. By the way, you paid for this in your taxes. You had to rebuild those roads. We had to rebuild those buildings. We had to rebuild that infrastructure. You paid for it. Minneapolis is still paying for the autonomous zone they had in Minneapolis. Cost $2 billion. Let me say it again. $2 billion in damages from the left. Antifa, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, also known as Plot. The far left burning down Minneapolis cost $2 billion. It is still to this day hurting those communities. The poor and minorities are suffering today because of the left. But you're not supposed to think about that. You're not supposed to talk about that. That's not approved. Oh, well, see, that just means you're a racist. How dare you be racist to remind us that it was the left that burned down those cities, and that has resulted in more poverty and more crime. I'm a racist for telling you that, like most people, 70% of blacks in America want the same or more police in their neighborhoods. 70%, even in Minneapolis. So you have to think, why are they doing this? Well, again, approved message. You're not supposed to talk about that. You might vote different if you think about that. You might not vote for a Democrat. You might not vote for a progressive if you think about that and understand that the promise never equals the reality. It never does. And if you think about that, well, then you might not vote for that next Democrat, that next progressive, so they can't have you talk about it. They don't want to talk about that. And they use words like racist and sexist, homophobe, transphobe, ist and phobe to silence you, to try and scare you away from talking about it so that other people won't listen to you, because if they did, they might agree. And if they agree, they may not vote the way they want them to. This is how you fortify an election. This is how they have been fortifying elections. You free? Don't believe it. So let me go on a little bit further. Because people are thinking, well, Mike, and this is, again, Joe Biden, we know, on Monday is going to be giving a speech to tell you that 53% of Americans are racist because they own a gun and or because they want to make America great. That's a fact. That absolutely is going to happen. We know this. It's already been leaked. I have a link on that. In fact, where is it? I believe it's... Nope. Yep. There it is. So when I'm saying this, we already know what the playbook is going to be. We already know that racism starts next week. But to get us to there, and before we get to the racism that we know is coming, that you're going to be called a racist if you do not obey. Well, the other thing they're going to do is they're going to go to January 6th. See, what's going to happen before, on Saturday, Joe Biden is going to go down to Valley Forge. He's going to Pennsylvania. And he's going to try and convince you that he is like George Washington. That's why he's going to Valley Forge. He's like the very first president of the United States. He's here to protect America. That's what you're going to hear. And I guarantee you, those speechwriters for Joe Biden are going to draw a comparison and say, it's like we're in Valley Forge. It's like the American Revolution. We are fighting for America, for freedom, as long as you vote Democrat, as long as you vote progressive. If you vote for anyone else, well, you're like the British. You're evil. Now, that doesn't correlate at all. It doesn't make any sense if you actually think about it. If you actually look at the situation, that's not true. Because Republicans aren't trying to take away your right to write in a name for whomever you want to vote for. Republicans aren't trying to take Joe Biden off the ballot. Well, actually, as a reaction they are, but they didn't come in and say, oh, we just got to pull him off. No. They said, hey, we have a primary. We have candidates who are going to be in the primary. The public will choose. The establishment has a preference, that's Nikki Haley, but they're going to abide by how you vote, the rank and file. Democrats are saying, no, that's not okay. That's not fortified. That's not the path. They may not get to the result that these elites that we don't know, we're not going to get to the outcome they want unless we stay on the path. So he's going to use January 6th, and he's going to make the plea. And you're going to hear from CNN and MSNBC and the mainstream news media, and they're going to try and compare Joe Biden at Valley Forge to George Washington and the American Revolution. And that's what this is. This is a revolution. This is a culture war that is going on. And they're going to use January 6th and say, see, that's just like fighting the British. It's just like a fight for freedom. That all those evil people who were walked into the Congress, where the doors were opened up and thousands of people came in. Yes, there were a couple dozen people who committed crimes. That's true. Never going to deny that. And those people who committed crimes should be punished. If they enacted violence, if they broke something, those people should be charged with breaking and entering, destruction of property. Those people, assault, absolutely, those people should be arrested. But that's a couple dozen out of thousands. Let me say it again. You have a couple dozen people, and then there are thousands. The left is very happy to tell you, you cannot judge the autonomous zone in Seattle where a 16-year-old was killed. Oh, but you can't blame everyone else in that autonomous zone. You can't blame everyone in the Minneapolis autonomous zone. You can't blame the people in the Atlanta autonomous zone when they killed a 6-year-old child. Oh, but that's not the fault of everyone in Atlanta. That's not the progressives in Atlanta. It's not their fault. You can't judge them by that. But they want to judge everyone in January 6th by one or two people who committed acts of violence. Even though we have tens of thousands of hours of video showing the police they're not worried about these people. Hell, they were escorting some of these people through the halls of Congress to find ways to let them walk onto the halls, the floor of Congress. They were escorting them. They were opening the doors and holding them open for them, waving hundreds of people in. You can't tell me that that's an insurrection. When the people, we have thousands of hours of video, and the Democrats know this, thousands of hours of video of people walking casually through as if they were on a tour, and some of them were. Yes, there's a handful of people. There's a couple dozen hours of a couple of people who did crimes. Absolutely. And they should be punished. So why are we going after thousands of Americans and demonizing millions of Americans for saying they have questions? Because they don't like where America is being led by Democrats and progressives. Oh, but it's perfectly fine. Remember, it was literally 1 hour after President Trump was elected in 2016. 1 hour after the announcement came out, and CNN and MSNBC, the left-leaning news media, were stunned and silent on air. Shocked, terrified. And within an hour, there were riots across America. Don't believe me? Look it up. The news has it. It was covered. An hour. That's how long it took the left to come out and riot. And when on January 21st, when Joe Biden was handed the keys to the White House, there were no riots. The left didn't burn down a single city. They didn't break property. The right did not do that. But the left, they're more than happy to do it. Why? Because you're being fortified. You're being told that the people who don't burn down cities are the problem. You're being told that anyone who doesn't approve or agree with what has been approved for them, they're the problem. They're trying to silence you. They're trying to get you to comply. They're trying to make sure that they get the outcome that they want. This is the fortification of 2024. And they will use January 6th to do it. Those people are all evil. They're terrible people. All 300,000 people. Literally, if the 300,000 people who were in Washington, D.C., who were surrounding the Capitol, if they wanted to take over the United States government that day, they would have. There was nothing that the government could have done to stop them. Nothing. We have seen countries that have been taken over. Hell, the Taliban took over Afghanistan with 10,000 people. We have seen governments fall with just a handful of people. You had 300,000 Americans that believe in making America the greatest nation it could be, and they did not try to take over the government, because if they wanted to, they would have. And we wouldn't be having this conversation today. That's a fact. That's a reality. That if you think about it logically, it's the only conclusion you come to. We have the historical fact in front of us. We have seen countries toppled time and time again. It doesn't take 300,000 people to do it. And yet, 300,000 people on January 6th surrounded the Capitol, and Joe Biden's now in the White House, peacefully. Gee, it doesn't seem to line up with the message that we are told, the way we are told to be afraid, the way we are told to comply and to not think and just be manipulated and do what you are told. I think that's very important. And that's what you're going to hear on Saturday. I haven't seen the speech. This is the pre-action. I call it, it's like a reaction video, except I'm doing it ahead of time. I'm predicting the reaction that's going to be happening on Saturday, as Joe Biden is going to stand in front of America, and he's going to try and tell you that he's there to protect America, to make you feel safe. You know what Joe Biden's also going to leave out in that conversation? There are 30,000 Americans that Joe Biden has thrown under a bus. 30,000. That's a minimum. That is the minimum number of Americans Joe Biden tossed away. 5,000 in Afghanistan, 10,000 in the Ukraine, 15,000 in the Sudan last year in April. He tossed them away. Stop talking about them. They do not exist. The American government let them rot and told them, figure it out for yourself. Find your own way home. That was what the Joe Biden State Department said to 15,000 Americans in the Sudan in April, the last week of April of 2023. Don't believe me? Look it up. I've already covered it. You can look in the videos. I've covered it live, and I'm telling you, you can look it up for yourself. It happened. You weren't really told about it. That news cycle lasted 3 days, and they stopped talking about it in America. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, they stopped talking about it. Have they mentioned the Americans in the Sudan since then? No, they have not. Did the Americans come home? No, they have not. Just like they don't talk about the hostages that are held by Hamas right now. Oh yeah, I know the colleges. We hear the colleges all the time. They're telling you, no, it's Hamas. We have to support Hamas because they're the small guy fighting against the big guy, which is Israel, and therefore Israel must be bad because anyone who's big and has power, they must be bad people. Mind you, that doesn't apply to the left. It doesn't apply to the white leftists. No, that doesn't matter. That's not the same thing. They're different. They're special because they're the ones in charge. And they have power, and they're using that power against you. So they're different. But everyone else these rules apply to. And so they go to you and they say things like, okay, in Hamas, they don't talk about the fact that there are hostages. Where are they? Yeah. They don't want to talk about the hostages. Now, mind you, next week, Antony Blinken, he's going over, and he's going to be in the Middle East. Where's that article? Nope. There we are. And we know that Matthew Miller was talking about it today. Matthew Miller was talking about today that Antony Blinken is going over, and he's going to be going to the Middle East. And his job, which wasn't stated, is to make a deal to get the hostages home. He's going to buy off Hamas. He's going to make sure they get humanitarian aid. We are giving aid. We are giving food and electricity to Hamas, the people who are killing American citizens. That's a fact. It's not in dispute. They killed Americans, 34 Americans, between October 7th and today. At least 34 Americans have been killed. And we're going to give them millions of your tax dollars. Think about that for a second. Joe Biden wants to give Hamas, the people who killed Americans, who have promised to kill even more Americans, he's giving them millions, hundreds of millions of your tax dollars. And he's going to stand in Valley Forge and tell you he's the good guy. It's what George Washington would have done. I truly don't agree with that. I don't believe that for a heartbeat. Neither should you. But that's what we're hearing from Matthew Miller. That's what we're hearing from the State Department. And that's what we're going to see Antony Blinken do next week behind closed doors. And he's going to promise to give more humanitarian aid, hundreds of millions of dollars to Hamas. But they just have to give the rest of the American hostages that are being tortured and sexually abused right now, they have to just give them back. And they have to do it before the November election, so that Joe Biden will win, because we have to fortify Joe Biden. We have to fortify the 2024 election. So Joe Biden can run around and say, I'm the good guy. I protected America. Even though he's going to leave out the part that, oh, by the way, he's funding the next time that Hamas attacks and kills Americans. He's funding Hamas as they attack Israel and try and commit genocide. That he is funding Iran right now. $10 billion. This is from John Kirby. That happened a little bit earlier today as well. I believe it was this speech that he had earlier today. This speech he had earlier today, where he confirmed $10 billion. We already know that Prime Minister Raisi of Iran and the Ayatollah of Iran have said that Joe Biden is going to give them $10 billion. 10. It increased from, it started at 6. It's now $10 billion. They gave us 5 prisoners they had illegally, 5 American prisoners. And we gave them $10 billion. And they said they're going to use that money to do whatever they want, to kill Americans and to kill Israel. That's what the Prime Minister Raisi of Iran, that's what the Ayatollah have said. And Joe Biden says, don't worry about it. Don't think about it. It's okay. And John Kirby said, don't worry, they're not going to use the money to build rockets. But they said they would. John Kirby said today, don't worry, they can't use that money to feed an army or to give it to terrorism. But they said they would. They said it on national TV. They said it in interviews with NBC. But John Kirby is fortifying the 2024 election. So he has to make sure you vote Democrat, because if he told you the truth, that Iran promised, they guaranteed they're going to use the humanitarian aid to fund terrorism, to kill Americans and to kill Israelis. If he told you the truth, you might not vote Democrat, you might not vote progressive. And then you would be fortifying the 2024 election. So he's lying. He's not lying. He's omitting the facts on purpose because he has a goal. And the mainstream media, they let it happen. They're not talking about it. They don't want you to think about it. All right, so I've covered a whole lot of stuff here, and I'm going to be wrapping up. We've been talking for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I want you to think about this, because the news, the algorithm, you're going to see YouTube and Facebook, they're going to try and suppress the hell out of this. They're going to try and make sure that you do not have this conversation, that you do not think about what I said. Whether you agree or not is not my point. I'm not trying to turn you into a conservative. I'm not trying to turn you into a Republican. I don't want you to change from being a libertarian or Green Party or whatever the hell it is. But I do want you to think about this election and the things that you ask of your elected officials. When we say that we want the most efficient, most effective people in Congress, we want them to also be transparent and honest. Think about it. John Kirby today was more than happy to tell you that the money that we're giving to Iran, it's behind closed doors. It's classified. They won't tell you how much money they're giving Iran. They won't tell you how Iran is using the money. That's classified. But he's going to say, but trust us, it's going to humanitarian aid. Why would I trust a government that told us, trust us, we're taking care of East Palestine, Ohio. Did they really? They failed the American people. And it was only after that failure was found because of independent individuals, that's when they actually took care of it. Yeah, 7:30. I know. So again, I'm finishing up here, but I want you to think about this. And again, it's not about doing what I say. I didn't ask you for that. I'm not saying be what I am, a conservative, a Republican. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to be aware and to vote based on not the fortification of 2024, not the manipulation that they are putting on you in 2024, but because you actually understand all the details. We'll be talking about this more as we go forward. But watch and hold me accountable. If Saturday, January 6th, if Joe Biden doesn't compare himself to George Washington and he isn't telling you that he's protecting America and he doesn't mention the 30,000 Americans that he has abandoned around the world to this moment, including Americans who are being tortured by Hamas and by the Taliban and ISIS, if I'm wrong, call me out. If on Monday, Joe Biden doesn't start running around America and start talking about MAGA equals racism, that anyone who isn't a Democrat or progressive, anyone who doesn't obey, well, they're just racist and they're evil, they're orange man bad, they're Trump supporters, and that all equals evil. If he doesn't say that, call me out on it. But you know I'm going to be right. YouTube, Facebook, the algorithms, they know I'm right, which means they don't want you to see this and they're going to try to do their best to not. So I only ask you one last thing here is please, if you've made it this far, like, share, subscribe. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. It costs you nothing. It means the world to me to allow more people to see this, to tell me whether they think I'm right or wrong, to show me the examples, to call me out if my prediction isn't correct. Fantastic. All I ask is give me that opportunity. Give me that chance. Because YouTube and Google, the social media giants, the mainstream news media, many politicians don't want to do that. Because you might think, and if you think, you might not vote the way they want you to vote. I look forward to seeing all the comments about this in all the media, and I look forward to seeing what happens on Saturday. Remember, Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will do our live stream with you, talking to everyone in the world to hear what you have to say about this and other issues going forward. I thank you, and I hope everyone will be well.